So today we're going to learn from this sefer that we're learning from every day, written by the first Rebbe of Chabad about 250 years ago. Called Torah Or, and we're going to learn about a little bit more about the circumcision, and especially the circumcision that Abraham made, what it accomplished. What's the point? And the Rebbe is going to ask a question. And we sort of dealt with this question before about what really was the importance of the circumcision, that it was the first thing that actually was commanded to a Jew, not to all the Jewish people, but it was commanded to a Jew in a physical, permanent way. We're going to see. That's an interesting thing about the circumcision, because we've said this before, but the reason that Jews circumcise themselves today, the commandment of circumcision is not because Abraham did it. It's a commandment that was given later on when the Jewish people were already in the desert. It's in the book of Leviticus, where God spoke to Moses from the tabernacle. The voice of God came from the tabernacle, and from the Ohel Moed, it says the tent of meeting, and that's where the commandment comes. It's in Parshas Tazria. Just on the eighth day, you should circumcise his flesh. Why is it, if so, that Abraham was given the same commandment like 400 years earlier? And we don't do the commandment because of the commandment is not because of him. On the other hand, when we do a circumcision nowadays, so the blessing that's made on the circumcision is, instead of we saying, like on every commandment that we do, we say, God, you have commanded us, blessed are you, God, that you've made us holy with your commandments. And you commanded us to put on tefillin, sit in the sukkah, take lulav etrog, even the commandments of the rabbis. We just say what the commandment is. Right? Thank you, God, for commanding us this commandment. And the commandment of circumcision, the blessing is different. It says, God, you made us holy with your commandments, and you commanded us to bring the child into the covenant of Abraham. Because in fact, Jews were circumcising themselves since Abraham. Before the commandment was given, Jews were circumcising themselves. Abraham lived approximately 400 years before the Torah was given. And that's when his main work was. I mean, he was born 300 and something years before the Torah was given, 350, 330 years before the Torah was given, he was born. But Abraham only really started his work like when he was 70 years old. So it was about 400 years. All of the offspring of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the 12 tribes, all the children of the 12 tribes, those are the Jews, right? All the time they were in the land of all the time that they were in Egypt, they all circumcised themselves. This is when they were in the desert, when they got out of Egypt, they weren't able to circumcise themselves because there was a wind blowing, whatever. It was and they were. But the fact is, the Jews were always circumcising themselves, even before the commandment was given. So why is this commandment different from all the others? And we're going to see that this has a special connection. Oh, sorry, one second. This commandment of circumcision has a special connection with the Mashiach. Okay, here we go. This is right at the end of this week's Torah portion. Be'etzem hayom hazeh, on that very day, like God told Abraham, circumcise yourself, and God told Abraham, circumcise yourself, and I'm changing your name. Your name is not going to be Abraham, Avram anymore. It's going to be Avraham. you're going to be the father of all mankind, right, with this commandment. So a little bit, we've talked about that before in the previous, that the whole idea of the commandments, which only Judaism has commandments. There's no other religion in the world that has commandments. No other religion. They have rituals, and they have their heritage, and they have the holidays and customs and what is it called, ceremonies and things like that. But they don't have it. They have their signs, right? A little sign they hang around their neck or something like that. But actual commandments that come from God Himself, only the Jewish people have. And the commandments are very, very exact. There's a lot of details. It's very possible to do a commandment and think you're doing okay, but you're not, because one detail was missing or something was done wrong. But one letter inside of the tefillin, on the head and the arm, one letter was wrong. One letter in the Torah scroll was written improperly or erased or something. There's a lot of details to the commandments. What is the purpose of the commandments? It's sort of like human anatomy, right? A person has you have a hand, you have a tongue, you have eyes. These things are tremendously complicated. How your hands work, how your eyes work, how your tongue works, right? Your sensory the sensory system, and the muscular system, and your and it has to be all coordinated and everything. It's very complicated. So the world is like that, and Torah is like that. This is the Torah is the image of God. The Torah, the Jewish people are called the twins of God, Ta'amati. They're called the twins of God because they do the commandments, and the commandments are the limbs of God. Huh? Okay, that's what Judaism says, that not only God created the world, and He creates the world every moment, He creates every detail in the world, but He wants the world to be a lot better than it is. He wants the world to be a receptacle for pure truth. We'll see the pure truth in everything there is in the world, every ant, every molecule, every detail, every star. I told you this before, but I'll tell it again. Someone asked the Rebbe if it's permissible. He worked for NASA, and they were investigating if there's life on Mars. And he asked the Rebbe, maybe it's forbidden. I mean, in the Bible, the Torah, it says that God gave the Torah only to the Jews, that there's only people on the world. And the Rebbe said it doesn't imply that in the Torah, that people only in the world, and they should investigate. And if they find out that there is life on other planets, it's a very good thing, because it shows another aspect of God's greatness, that He can create people not just on the earth. But the Rebbe said, but you should, for sure, those people, they didn't receive the Torah. The Torah was only given to the Jews. That's for sure. What makes that special? So why are the Jews different than Martians or Venetians or people from the what is it, the solar system of Zork or something? What difference does it make? I mean, they have all these science fiction books to scare you. What is the end? What is the War of the Worlds? Remember what? Maybe we're going to be attacked. Maybe we're going to. No, it's not so. God gave the Torah to the Jews in this physical world to assure that this physical world is eternal, and that God is good. He's not going to wipe everybody out. That happened last week with the flood. It's not going to happen again. He's not going to send extraterrestrial beings or spirits or whatever, and everybody's just going to get disappeared or sucked up into the spaceship or something. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So if you're worried about it, you should know that you can stop, because there's no need to. It's just paranoia or something like that, which is induced. I mean, some people benefit greatly from everybody being afraid, but the fact is you shouldn't be afraid. The main message of the Baal Shem Tov, of Hasidut, is not to be afraid of anything except for God. Yes, be afraid of God. What do you mean being afraid of God? Not that God is going to zap us or going to do this, but to be afraid that maybe we won't do what God wants, then we'll make an unhealthy world. Okay, so the beginning of this whole circular story system and interchange between the world and God creating us and making the world a better place. It started with Adam, but Adam didn't do it. And it had to wait 2,000 years until Abraham was born in order to really fix this thing up. Even Noah didn't do it. Right? Noah was also like about 400 years before Abraham. They lived in the same time, by the way. Noah and Abraham were alive in the same time. I think it was like they lived together 58 years. And they were alive at the same time. I don't know if they actually met. Could be. I think there's a midrash that Abraham went to Noah to ask him advice. I think there's anyway. Here we go. So at the end of this week's Torah portion, God tells Abraham to circumcise himself. Ready? Here we got it. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. And that very day, Abraham was circumcised, which apparently this is a grammatical mistake. Of course, it's not a grammatical mistake, but the Torah was written by God. Every letter is very exact. If you correct this grammatical mistake, then the Torah is disqualified. You have to fix it. You have to fix it. But it doesn't say on that very day Abraham circumcised himself, which he did. Abraham was circumcised. Who did it? Who circumcised him? The fact of the matter is that he circumcised himself. How he did such a weird thing, I don't know, but he did circumcise himself. Don't try it at home, like I said. Lahavin akusha, to understand this question that's asked in books. Why didn't Abraham do this thing of circumcision? Kodem before me'achar, it says since shekayim Torah kula. Abraham did the whole entire Torah ad shelo nitna, before it was given. The Torah is not a book that just God made it up on the last moment. You know, God is not like a composer that suddenly he just got an inspiration and he just put out this amazingly complicated, book. Right? No, it's not so. The Torah was before the world was created. The Torah is the blueprint of the world. The Torah is the blueprint of truth. Like I said, the anatomy of God, of God's will, of God's wisdom. So it was there before. So Abraham just tapped into it. Abraham tapped into it. Like I said before, the Torah is the body of God. Well, man is created in the image of God, especially the Jews. And what does it mean they're created in the image of God? Like I said, when a Jew does a commandment, so he links himself with God's arm. So we have arms, God has arms. We have legs, God has legs. I mean, that doesn't make any sense because God obviously does not have arms or legs. There's no, what is it? Astronauts say, hey, look at that, Fred. What do you think that is? Oh, that's one of God's teeth. That's God's tooth. I think that's one of the incisors, if I'm not mistaken, or the molars, right? Let's call back to the station and ask. God doesn't have a mouth and teeth. On the other hand, in the books of Kabbalah, it explains what it means that we're created in the image of God. That God has an intellect and God has mind, and even in the other books of Kabbalah, it even explains in Eitz Chaim, these books, it says the eyes of God and the nose of God, and the left nostril and the right nostril, and these ideas are not explained in Chassidut. Other ideas are in Chassidut Chabad. In any case, Abraham tapped into this. He realized that his body was made in the image of God, in the image of the Torah. And so he said, what have I got a finger for? What have I got a leg for? What have I have a heart for? What have I have a brain for? And he figured out all the commandments, even the commandments of the rabbis. Eruvi Tavshilin is a rabbinical commandment. Well, the Havin said to understand this. So he did all the commandments before they were given. Why didn't he circumcise himself? Now, this question is asked by a lot of people. There's different answers. One of the answers is because circumcision, you damage yourself, and you can't do that on your own. You're not allowed to damage yourself. A person's not allowed to damage himself. So therefore, he didn't do it because he wasn't commanded to do. Okay, but the Rebbe is going to give a different answer. It says that there's 70 faces to the Torah. Genuine answers. We're not talking about wrong answers, genuine answers. So it says, "Lahavin zeh," to understand, tzurich lahavin techila, we have to understand first, inyan mila, what is exactly circumcision? Hine kasiv, it says, lo b'shamayim hi, is a sentence in the Torah. The Torah is not up in heaven, lay more to say, mi alelanu hashamayim. Who's going to go up to the heaven? That's the whole Tanya, by the way, is based on this next, what comes after this. Korov elecha davar mod. It's very, very close to you. It says, mi yale lanu hashamayim are the first letters, Rosh Tevis, of Mila. Mi yale lanu hashamayim. Mila, circumcision. What are the last letters? Yud, then Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey, God's name. Now, the first letters of words that are in the Torah indicate a higher level of godliness than the last letters. What's first in the sentence, and the first in every word. So if so, it comes out that Mila is higher than God. The first letters are Mem, Yud. The circumcision is higher than God, God's name. We'll see what this means. Inyan, in the beginning, it says, there's one sentence in the Torah that says you must circumcise the foreskin of your heart. And later on, it says, Mal Hashem Elokecha, that God will circumcise your heart. So you have to circumcise your heart. Now, what's your heart? Selfishness. Your heart is you. What's the foreskin of your heart? The foreskin of your heart is your selfishness that prevents your heart, your emotions from functioning properly, from seeing God, from feeling God, from being aware of God, from loving God, from fearing God. That's the foreskin. So it says you have to remove it. You have to remove the foreskin of your heart so you're not so selfish, not so callous, you're not so insensitive. Remove that foreskin of your heart. But then afterwards it says that God will circumcise your heart. So let God do it. What do I have to do it for? It says no. The fact is that the base bechinas mila. There's two types of circumcision. There's two types of jobs, works we have to do on our heart. When Adam was created, Adam, the first man, as he felt God, he knew God, he was emotional about God. He felt he was being created. He was grateful to his creator. He knew that every moment of his life and everything in the world was a big miracle, just waiting for him to use it properly. He felt his responsibility to God. And as soon as he sinned by eating the tree, as all of a sudden his feeling went away. He became insensitive. And this insensitivity to the Creator, insensitivity to reality, that's the source of all sins. How is it possible, for people to kill each other, right? The Nazis, the Japanese, the things that they did are incomprehensible, just killing people. And they did it in the name of justice and humanity and to benefit all mankind, communism especially. They killed millions. How could they do it? The answer is that they became callous. They didn't have any feeling. They didn't have any feeling. Well, it's the same thing with the Creator. The Creator is creating us. He's everywhere, ubiquitous. Everyone should feel the Creator. That's for sure. You should be grateful, and people are not grateful, and people don't appreciate life, and they don't appreciate their own life. They don't appreciate other people's lives. There's two levels of circumcision. One of them is from below to above that we have to do. So we have to circumcise our hearts. This is the idea of tshuva. This is the idea of what's called returning to God. Like it says, you should return to God. How do you return to God? By doing the commandments. Omer Rizal, the rabbi, saying, Yisrael osim tshuva, if the Jewish people just turn back to God, if they return their attention to God, tshuva also means to return to God what we owe him, right? He's creating us, he's enlivening us, he's giving us everything, but we don't feel we owe anything. You have to be sensitive a little bit to have a little bit of a conscience that you owe in order to repay. So it says when the Jewish people start to realize what they owe God, and how close we owe everything. He's creating us, he's enlivening us, and he's giving us responsibility. And when we start feeling that responsibility, we learn the Torah, we do its commandments, then nigalim, then there'll be the Moshiach. V'im lav, but if the Jewish people don't, wake up Ein Nigalim, there won't be a redemption. And it says that's one of the jobs of Mashiach is to bring Mashiach, to make everybody sensitive. Okay, so that's the first thing. The first is that before Mashiach comes, is we have to work on ourselves and be sensitive to God. Sensitive to God. Now, this is not a matter of just indoctrinating ourselves or hypnotizing ourselves, or whether this is a matter of just discovering ourselves, discovering what the truth is. Just discovering that we are human beings, what it means to be a human being, discovering the Jews discover that they're Jews. Namely, what that mankind reveals that God is creating them. And the Jews reveal that that's their obligation to make sure that everyone in the world knows it. That's Abraham. That's the start of Abraham, the father of all mankind. Well, it says, therefore, we have to turn everyone's attention and everyone's sensitivity and everyone's awareness and everyone's gratitude to the Creator who's creating us. Not just there's a Creator that created the world whatever it is, 1,000 years ago or 1 trillion years ago. Right now, we're being created to feel that. When there was a holy temple, people would go and they would feel it. But when they weren't in the holy temple, and they didn't feel it. And now we're not in the holy temple. So we don't feel it. So we have to work on ourselves so that we start to feel it. And just to ask yourself, if God is really creating me, why don't I feel it? And then trying to become a little more appreciative, a little more sensitive to the truth that we're being created and we're being created for a purpose. And if we don't feel this, then there's not going to be Mashiach. Mashiach won't come. And that's why I said that's one of the jobs of the Mashiach is to make everybody feel this. That's the idea of the Lubavitcher Rebbe making Chabad houses all over the world and advertising all over the world. And if there's God and God will help us, God will. That's before. And after God sends Mashiach and he gathers up all the Jewish people to Israel. Kativ, it says, God says, I will bring you all to the land of Israel and I will benefit you. It says, the continuation of the sentence is, I will benefit you more than your fathers. So God, there's going to be 2 stages. Number 1 is all the Jews are going to come to their senses. That's what also means tshuva. Tshuva means to return to consciousness. Right? A person's out cold, and he's coming back to consciousness. He's returning to life. He's returning to, right? Just returning to be aware of who you are. You're a creation. That's for step number 1. And that's what one of the things, by the way, it says Mashiach is going to do is he's going to defeat all of our enemies. And if people would only take the advice of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he's the only one that's advising this. There's other people that sort of caught on, but about what's going on now in Israel, then that would get rid of all of our enemies. What's the Rebbe's advice? Attack. Show them the enemies. The Rebbe said, do not send in ground troops. The Rebbe said we have to prepare bombs and tell the Palestinians that if they don't leave, we're going to wipe everybody out. We're going to carpet bomb the whole thing. And if they see that we're serious, which we're not, but if they see that we're serious and we don't listen to world pressure, we don't listen to anything, if they see, the Rebbe said, it could be that you won't have to fire 1 shot. Everyone's lives will be saved. Not 1 shot. Everyone will all leave on their own. But we're not serious. So, but as soon as we do, we'll see that the Mashiach is fighting the battles of God. And not just in that way, also all the other opposing opinions will start to realize that maybe they were wrong. Like in the 6-Day War, for instance, the Rebbe was the only opinion in the whole world that said that absolutely nothing to worry about. Israel is the safest place in the world. It's going to be big miracles. The war is going to be finished in a few days, right? Same thing was with the Scad missiles. No one in the world agreed with the Rebbe. The Rebbe said there's absolutely nothing to worry about. Israel is the safest place. And in fact, Saddam Hussein shot 39 missiles. Nothing happened. right? Buildings fell down, no one was hurt. So people just have to follow the Rebbe's advice. That'll be fighting the battles of God. And also, Jewish people will start to become aware. Every day I go out and I put tefillin on people now. I stand in this place, there's near the hospital. And people come and I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. Yesterday, I came there very late. I only was there able to be there for like 40 minutes. And that 40 minutes, almost 20 people put on tefillin, one after the other. They were standing in line. You couldn't believe it. And the people that refused, everything is there's people start to follow the directions of what the Rebbe says, as all of a sudden everybody starts to wake up. Anyway, that's one of the reasons Mashiach will build the temple, because only in the temple can you do all the commandments, and all the Jews will want to do all the commandments, and that'll draw them to the land of Israel. In any case, after they do all come to Israel, all the Jewish people, they all wake up that there's the Creator and what the Creator wants, and they'll come to the temple. The temple will be built, and they'll come to the Holy Land. Then that's step number one. We've circumcised ourselves, come to the land of Israel. Then afterwards it says, God says, I will bring you to the land of Israel and benefit you. Mila, this is the second type of circumcision that God is going to do, that comes from above to below. Umal Hashem, that God will circumcise yourself. That's the Mila, that's before the name of God, higher than the name of God. That's what it means. I will benefit you more than your forefathers. This is the level of how great is the good that you have concealed for those who serve you. It's a sentence in Psalms. Moshe, it says God will do you good. The circumcision will be good. When Moses was born, it says that they saw that he was good, and the rabbis explain that it means that he was born circumcised. Namely, Shebechinat Mila. This is the first Mila, which is higher. I'm sorry. Hainu Shebechin. Okay, no, new sentence. Hainu Shebechin is Mila, that the circumcision that we do from below to above. This is an arousal from below. Eteruta de la tata. This is an arousal from below. This is something that we do. We circumcise ourselves. We're doing it. We're doing the work. And the arousal from above, how God reacts to what we do. This is God will circumcise our hearts. We'll become even more sensitive to what God is. On the second circumcision, we're talking about that God does, which comes after all of the exiles. The Jews are gathered from the exile, the Achakiyam Torah Kula, and after the Jews do all the Torah, it says, Mi Yalelenu Shamaima, who will go up for us to heaven. That's the first letters, Mila. First letters is circumcision, which is even above the level of the Torah, even higher than the Torah. Why? Because the Torah says, Lo b'shamayim, the Torah is not in heaven. The Torah came down to the world. The Torah is not in heaven. The Torah is here in the world. It's been given to the hands of the rabbis to interpret properly. The Torah is not in heaven. And circumcision, it says, is above heaven. Like it says in the Gemara, Rabbi Yeshua, like Rabbi Yeshua said, you don't listen to heavenly voices. There was an argument that's in Baba Metzia. There was an argument between all the rabbis, and they all argued with Rabbi Eliezer. And Rabbi Eliezer said certain thing, and everyone else disagreed. And Rabbi Eliezer said, to show that I'm true, what I'm saying is true, let there come a heavenly voice. And a heavenly voice came and said, the law is like Rabbi Eliezer. And Rabbi Yeshua and all the other rabbis says, we don't listen to heavenly voices. The Torah is not in heaven. It's below. And it's called Torah Havaya. That's called the Torah of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Those are the last letters of Mila. The Torah is connected to the name of God. Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey. Yud is Tzimtzum. Yud is how God contracts himself, so to speak, hides himself. Hey, that he, from this contraction, he spreads him, that little bit of godliness he reveals. he spreads it out, vav draws it down, etc. By means of this, godliness can be drawn below. That's the last letters of the sentence, Mi Yalel Lenu Hashemayim, the name of God. Avomila, but the first letters of this sentence, Mi Yalel Lenu Hashemayim, Mem Yud Lamed Hey, that's circumcision. That shows something that's higher than the name of God, higher than the Torah. Ajay Beresh Tevis, that's where it's the first letters of this sentence. The Havaya and the name of Yud Ke Vav Ke, this is the last letters. Okay, and therefore, Him Bechinas Umadregas Hashemayim, therefore, it is in the level of heaven, and heaven is higher. Well, the Torah, it's higher than heaven. The Torah is not in heaven. It says in circumcision is in this level of heaven. In other words, it's above the Torah. The Torah came down. And this is the rabbis say, Gadol Mila, great is circumcision. The Maimonides explains this also on the end of the laws of circumcision. He has near the beginning of the book, of the 14 books of the Rambam. And it says that the word Brit, circumcision, is mentioned 13 times with Abraham's circumcision, Brit. And the Torah, it's only mentioned 3 times, the word Brit, circumcision. Perish Gadol Mila, what does it mean that circumcision is greater? This is referring to the big circumcision that God is going to do from above. Sheyimol Hashem, that God, He will circumcise our hearts. And therefore, Nichrata Yud Gimel, therefore there was made 13 covenants. It says 13 times the word Brit, covenant, appears by the circumcision with Abraham. Therefore it says because God made 13 covenants. 13. What does it mean? Kiyadua she'inyan hakrita Brit, that the whole idea of making a covenant, hu lamaylam yasechel, it's above understanding. What is a covenant? A Brit? 2 oavim, 2 people that love each other, good friends. She'osim kritat Brit, that they make a covenant, liot oavim zel zeh, to love one another despite all reasons to stop this love. A love, even if I don't love this other person, right? Me and Shmerel are best friends. And we say to each other, I see myself in you, you see yourself in me. We're like one person. Let us make a covenant between us that we're always going to be friends. We're always going to have this level of of a brotherhood and togetherness that we have now. We'll make a covenant. A covenant. What's the purpose of making a covenant? Because times change, situations change, right? I see something genuine in you. You see something genuine in me. We make a covenant that this genuine thing will always be remembered by us. We'll always love one another despite what? Well, that's what God did to us. When God made the covenant with Abraham, He made 13 covenants. Said, even if all the reasons in the world come that I should not like the Jews, and the Jews gave Him ample reason not to, God said, I made a covenant, I'm always going to love you. Afterwards, mitzad seichel, even though there's reasons, let's say 2 people, they love each other, they're best friends, and then afterwards, according to logical reasons, or according to the situation, Hadat, they don't love each other. Nevertheless, he forces himself to love the other person, to love the other person above knowledge. I don't know if this, if you can see very many examples of this in the world. People are always making agreements and breaking agreements and things like that. But ideally, it's supposed to be that a covenant is a deep agreement made between 2 people that they will always be friends. They will never be enemies. A covenant. And anytime he has good reason, ample reason to hate the other person, he always looks at that covenant that he made. He made a blood covenant, or he made a mark or something like that. Then they made an earring, whatever he did, and he remembers, I can't do it. Right? He's we're one person. Similarly, in order that there should be this big revelation of godliness that we said before, this is the Marav Tuvacha, how great is your good. God said, I'm going to give it to the Jewish people no matter what they do. This is by me. This is a deep, 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 deep love that God has for the Jews. And He made a covenant with them, 13, corresponding to the 13 attributes of mercy. She'ein lamaila, this is above michachma and the Torah or any wisdom, and therefore it's above even the name of God, even above the Torah. When did we get these 13 attributes of mercy? When the Jewish people worshiped the golden calf, which was the worst sin ever ever done by a human being in the history of the world. God told the Jews clearly at Mount Sinai, and they all heard it. They heard the first two commandments, according to all the opinions. Don't worship anything except for me. I took you out of Egypt. I'm giving you the Torah. I created the world. I'm creating the world. Don't worship anything except for me. And the Jews said, yes, God, we will only serve you. And 40 days later, they worshiped the golden calf. How could they do a thing like that? And God said, listen, I can't, I did my utmost to prove to these people that I exist and that I'm good. And I took them out of Egypt. I'm giving them manna from heaven. And they're doing exactly the opposite. I'm going to wipe them all out. And Moses said, hey, God, remember the 13 covenants you made with Abraham? God said, well, yeah, I guess so. So he said, okay, I don't want this happen, that to repeat this over and over again, because the Jews are going to continue sinning. So do me a favor, give me a formula that reminds you of these 13 covenants. And God gave Moses the 13 attributes of mercy. Just like the 13 attributes of mercy, they are above the Torah. The Jewish people went against the whole entire Torah. Idolatry is the worst. And therefore, therefore there is forgiveness of sins. And this, Ne'amar, it says, Ad Yavoram Hashem, in the song that they sang after they went over the Yam Suf, the Red Sea, the Reed Sea. The Jews went over, they said, Ad Yavor, it says, until the Jewish people went over. And it says it twice, Ad Yavoram Hashem, Ad Yavoram Zukanita. It says twice, they went over. What did they went over? They went over above the name of God. Ad Yavoram Hashem. The Jewish people went over higher than the name of God. The name of God, that's the Torah. And also by the 13 attributes of mercy, it says the same thing. Vayavor Hashem al panav, that God went over in front of Moses. God jumped over all the sins and he remembered the covenant he has with the Jewish people. That's this Abraham. Now we can understand why Abraham did all the commandments, all the Torah before it was given, but he didn't do the commandment of circumcision. Why? Because the Torah is a lower level. And Abraham wanted to get to this level of circumcision that God is going to do. He wanted to reach this circumcision, this big circumcision that would be from above to below. The circumcision that God is going to do to all the Jews after the Mashiach comes. Lokach, therefore, Kim kol Torah kulu. Therefore, Abraham did the whole entire Torah from below. That's below this level of Mila. Like we said, mi yalenu, mi yale lanu hashemayim. That's the first letters. Mem, Yud, Lamed, Hey. That's higher than the name of God. Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey. Abraham wanted to get this level. He wanted God to command him. He didn't want to do it on his own. And afterwards, Abraham did all of the Torah before it was given as much as he could. I mean, he did it spiritually. Obviously, didn't put on physical tefillin, because in the tefillin it says, I am God that took you out of Egypt. God didn't take anybody out of Egypt yet. After Zachala Oto Mila, Abraham merited to that. He wanted to open the door, set the stage for that higher circumcision that God is going to give to the Jewish people after they all return to him. That's what it says in Nimal Avram. That's what it says. Avram was circumcised. It's not a grammatical mistake like I started the class with. It says on that day, Abraham was circumcised, and it doesn't say that he circumcised himself. Like it says in the beginning when he circumcised Yishmael, right? Yishmael then was 12 years old. He circumcised him then. Yishmael, 12, 13 years old. Miknas Kaspo, he was okay. Miknas Kaspo, and it says that Abraham had to circumcise Yishmael and all of his servants. A Jew that has a servant has to circumcise the servant. It says if a Jew has a servant, of course that's not nowadays. If you have a Jew now, there's no Jewish servants, but if you at one time when there used to be the temple and they had the Jewish servant, you had to circumcise your servants also. They had to be taken in. And we learn the laws of it. Not in all cases. There's sometimes you can make a condition, but nevertheless, Abraham circumcised his son Ishmael, and he circumcised all of his servants. This, of course, was a year before Yitzchak was born. Abraham circumcised himself and circumcised Ishmael and everyone. He circumcised. It says V'yomel, he circumcised. But by Abraham, it says not that he circumcised himself, that he was circumcised, passive tense. Because that when all of the others, Abraham circumcised, that's talking about the type of circumcision that we do. We circumcise our hearts. Like it says in Maltam, we have to circumcise our own hearts. But Abraham, Abraham merited to this higher level of circumcision that God circumcised his heart. Therefore, it says, Nimal Avram. Avram was circumcised. Of course, he did circumcise himself. There's no doubt about it. But that's physically he did. But what he received spiritually, because he waited for the commandment of God, he didn't do it before God. He wanted the commandment of God, and he also wanted this revelation of God that would be for him and eventually for all the Jewish people in the end of time. So Abraham was setting the stage for Mashiach. In other words, Mashiach is just going to finish what Avram started. That the whole world will know about God, and that the Jewish people have even a deeper, more intimate awareness of the Creator. And this they'll be able to pass on as much as possible to all mankind. V'zeu, that's what it means. That's what it means on that, the essence of that day. Nimol, Abraham was circumcised. What do I mean? V'atzmiut shel hayom hazeh, the essence of this day. Which is this day? The day which is totally long. It's going to be only day, no light. Shekulo tov, it'll be only good. That's talking about the future. Nowadays, there's day and night. In the future, night means things are concealed. And when Mashiach comes, afterward, there's going to be stages, right? First of all, everything's going to be normal. The non-Jews won't have any effect on us. Basically, that's the way it is now. If the Israeli government would just have a head on their shoulders, then, but they're so worried about what America is going to say, what America is going to say, and what the United Nations is going to say, and what this is. But basically, the first stage of Mashiach has arrived, right? The land of Israel is there's no, the non-Jews don't rule over us. We make them rule over us. We're inviting them to rule over us. After the 6-Day War, we won the 6-Day War. We gave away the temple to the Arabs. We gave it back to them. They were defeated. They were completely knocked out, and we gave away, just like we gave away Gaza. Now look what they're doing to us. We're our own problem. But basically, Mashiach has come. That he can change everything, but he can't change our free will. We have a free will. In any case, it says, on Abraham therefore waited for God to command him, so that he could get this high revelation, which is going to be the portion of every single Jew in the world. They'll all be in the land of Israel. And this will spread to the whole entire world. There won't be any more aggression in the world, and no more depression, and no more addictions in the world, no more hatred. The world will be a wonderful place. Life will be valuable. Every human being is unique. The more human beings, the better. We'll see the goodness, the godliness in everything. That's called the essence of the day. Atzmiel shel hayom. That's namely Oto Agili, that great revelation that's going to be in the future. The revelation of Rav Tuvacha, your greatness. Listen, right now God is also revealed. What's he revealed? We're alive. You're alive. I'm alive. That's God. God is revealing himself in us. You can see, you can hear. This is a revelation of godliness. The problem is what we do with. Do we appreciate it? But it is certainly godliness. In fact, we'll see that the whole entire world is a big miracle. And that's nothing. Even the greater miracle is that we can change it. We can improve it. We have help from God. We have the Torah to tell us how to improve the world. That's called Rav Tuvacha. It's higher than the Torah. That's the day that's going to be totally good. She did Gala. We said good means light. It said in the beginning of creation, it says God saw the light. It was good. Good means light. Well, Krishna did Gala lo, then there will be revealed the essence of the day. Then It says, "Az nimol Abraham." That's what it means. Abraham was circumcised, namely, God Himself. Even though Abraham did it himself, but God revealed this tremendous revelation, nimol Abraham, that it was done all something only God Himself can do. Abraham didn't have to do anything. He circumcised himself, but because he waited for God to command him to do it, so therefore inherent in the commandment that he did was also the revelation of God, that God will circumcise our hearts and will really feel the truth and the goodness and the love and the closeness of the Creator to each and every one of us. Good. That is the mimer about. By the way, every father in Chabad says this mimer at the circumcision of his sons. You have 10 sons, you say it at every circumcision, this mimer. So it's worthwhile to learn. Okay, let us do now the Yom Yom.